The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. As a follow-up to the critically acclaimed Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask only had 1 year of development, reusing several assets and systems from that title. And considering that, it's absolutely crazy how well crafted this game is, loaded with fascinating new ideas. Majora's Mask is a shining example of the benefit to branching a series out in a new direction, resulting in an adventure unlike anything the series has seen. In this video, I'm going to lay out what I found to be the best and the worst aspects of this game. Be warned that full spoilers for The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask are on the table. The best. Number 1, creativity. While this game reuses plenty of items, enemies, and NPCs from Ocarina of Time, there's such a big focus on new and original ideas that none of it feels stale. The concept of reliving the same 3 days over and over to stop the moon from destroying the world is tremendously unique. This is a brilliant premise with an interesting gameplay loop, learning about schedules and events you can influence for better outcomes. Transformations exist on top of this, another novelty of Majora's Mask, letting you embody classic races, each with their own abilities that match how they would feel to control. They even have their own instruments. Rolling around as a Goron is a heck of a power trip, and there's even a boss fight utilizing it to great effect. It's one of the most inspired and exhilarating bosses the series has seen. Swimming as a Zora is even more empowering. In fact, this is one of the most fun methods of controlling a character underwater I've experienced, allowing you to smoothly wind up and down and leap along the surface. It's a blast. And I'm definitely calling out Deku Scrubs, my favorite race in the Zelda series, on full display with an entire civilization, original designs, including the adorable princess. And of course, the power to play as one yourself. An absolute dream for Deku lovers. Creativity extends to areas as well. We have a swamp, a snowy mountain, an ocean coastline, and a spooky canyon, none of which are typical locations for the series, especially when this game came out. Dungeons are intricate and satisfying to conquer because they get you thinking, each ending with their own solid boss fight. Stone Tower Temple in particular deserves attention for its imaginative flipping upside down concept. The elemental arrows from Ocarina of Time are back, but fleshed out more, especially the ice arrows, which can now freeze water to create footholds. This is a great reworking of a mostly pointless item from that game. The ranch defense mission from ghost-like aliens needs to be highlighted. This is a wonderfully tense sequence, and super out of the ordinary for Zelda, but a complete success thanks to its strong presentation. This game really wasn't afraid to try new things, and I couldn't be more grateful for that. Number 2, a living, immersive world. Natural world building is one of this game's greatest strengths. The repeating 3-day cycle lets characters feel less static, going about their schedules and reacting to the world around them. This allows Clocktown to feel alive and organic. It's no wonder it's such an iconic location. Characterization is well done. A lot of them are believable and easy to sympathize with, drawing you into the world and their problems. The Happy Mask salesman, despite how briefly he appears, makes a lasting impression thanks to his design and dialogue, striking a fine line between friendly and unsettling. Darmani and Mikau, the Goron and Zora who you transform into, each have tragic tales of their regrets, leaving a strange blend of emotions when you take on their personas. A lot of NPCs have sad stories in Majora's Mask, but nothing's more well known than the side quests centered around Anju and Kafei, a couple to reunite in the 3-day time frame. This can be a cryptic one to figure out, but managing to accomplish this task and finally seeing the two embrace their love moments before the moon falls might be the most touching moment in the entire series. Despite your efforts constantly being undone, accomplishments feel meaningful because payoffs are satisfying. The postman's inner turmoil, the guard captain lamenting his responsibilities, characters hiding themselves away, seeking shelter in a perpetually emptying out Clocktown as the moon gets closer. It's all presented so authentically, you feel the emotion and want to help these people. This kind of moving storytelling works in its simplicity. Even witnessing witnessing the Deku Butler weep before the warped form of his own son in the credits is more moving than the droves of impossible to care about narratives plaguing gaming today. Number 3, imagery and atmosphere. Sound and visual design are top-notch here, creating the thick atmosphere Majora's Mask is known for. You always feel the moon looming closer, and several things contribute to this as time goes on. Clocktown's music becomes more unsettling, the screen will shake more often, and of course, the booming daily image reminding you how much time's left. Shout out to the incredibly well done screen shrinking effect. The chiming clock tower bell in the final hours, accompanied by an unbelievable track, still affects me to this day. It's remarkably effective. There's an attractive use of color and lighting throughout the game, often creating mysterious and surreal environments. This is also one hell of a soundtrack. It always perfectly captures the mood, whether eerie or enchanting. Majora's Mask is an audio-visual masterpiece with a strong identity that few games come close to. Number 4, Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask is fittingly named for its primary antagonist, Majora, combined with the playful Skull Kid to create one of the most interesting villains this series has seen. To start, the mask's striking design is stylish yet frightening, perfect for an ancient hexing item. The Skull Kid's naive nature is ideal for hosting its chaotic power. Scenes with him are unnerving but captivating, since it's hard to tell where his words are really coming from. You're introduced by having your horse and ocarina stolen, afterwards being transformed into a Deku scrub. There's no doubt how threatening and dangerous the Skull Kid is right from the get-go, with some laughter thrown in for a delightful hint of madness. At the end, Majora's reveal of speaking on its own and tossing away the Skull Kid is exciting, leading to a cool final battle showing the multiple forms of Majora, exuding all the chaos and corruption it's made up of. Its final appearance is pretty horrific, with 2 massive whip-like arms and screams that sound manic and pained. This is also a gorgeous arena for a final fight that you won't forget. Majora's Mask and the Skull Kid are rightfully icons of the Zelda series, representing the depth and emotion this game excels at. Number 5, the ending. This isn't an ending filled with plot twists or even a lot of depth, but it leaves you feeling fulfilled. The 4 giants stopping the moon from falling is an intense scene, with a great sense of scale that leaves an impact. Rising into the moon only to be greeted with a dreamlike field with a single tree is awfully unexpected. Children are also running around it with the faces of the bosses you've defeated, and a lonely Majora's Mask wearing child sitting under the tree alone. It's quite the powerful imagery, with a lot you can read into. The Fierce Deity Mask is an unbelievable reward for collecting all of the other masks, turning you into a dark god that absolutely thrashes the final boss. It's an insanely awesome super reward for doing a large amount of side content. After Majora's defeated and the moon's back in the heavens, the Skull Kid's back to normal, the happy mask salesman travels on, and you have a sweet goodbye with your fairy companion. It's a satisfying conclusion made even better by its credit sequence, showing the characters you've helped throughout the journey. Ocarina of Time's credits are similar, but these work even better, since you're likely to be more invested in their storylines. It's great to see the results of your actions manifest, and the world finally continue forward. Credits that double as epilogues are always appreciated. Final note, the Great Fairy Sword is a really cool optional item and looks sweet. I could keep going. Majora's Mask is impressive in so many ways. Still, this is a sequel of sorts to Ocarina of Time, one created in only a year, so naturally, several of its predecessors' issues have stuck around, and not everything was given the time and attention that it needed. The worst. Number 1, cryptic qualities. An issue with Ocarina of Time and many other older video games, Majora's Mask has its fair share of cryptic moments when it comes to story progression, side quests, and even collecting the stray fairies. The first 3-day sequence can be demanding if you don't realize the importance of certain tasks, and talk to most characters. I wouldn't be surprised if most players fail this on their first go. Being uncertain of the path forward doesn't stop there. It's a constant consistent throughout most of the game. Finding the Goron Elder in a snowball, the entrance to the pirate fortress, where to even get certain items, a lot of things aren't always clear. It's easy to get lost, and talking to everyone is pretty essential. Side quests aren't much different. A lot of solutions aren't apparent, which can lead to a lot of trial and error. Temples each contain 15 stray fairies to find for useful upgrades, which is a good idea, but man, were they ruthless with how well hidden some of these are. It pays off to bother with it, but it's nuts to think how much work some of these would be to find without a guide. The inverted Song of Time is pretty crucial to a pleasant experience. It slows down time to make management far more reasonable, so you don't have to rush, but unfortunately easily missed if you don't talk to the scarecrows. Nothing else in the game teaches you this trick, and without it, Majora's Mask is a hell of a lot more daunting. I'm glad the game doesn't hold your hand, but there's no denying how easily you can hit roadblocks your first time through. Number 2, low quality rewards. Several side quests and challenges are a bit too much effort for how measly their rewards are. Keep in mind this doesn't apply to everything. The aforementioned stray fairies and fierce deity mask are a lot of work to acquire, but worth the effort. Here's what I'm talking about. Obtaining masks is satisfying and ultimately leads to the fierce deity mask, but individually, most of them are used for a single thing, ultimately amounting to a piece of heart. Some masks don't even give you anything. When looking at the utility of the bunny hood or blast mask, it's a shame more weren't crafted with open-ended utility in mind. As is, a lot of them are just novelties. The Don Gero quest is one of the worst inclusions. You have to complete a quest to get Don Gero's mask in the first place, then defeat the boss of Snowhead Temple to bring springtime to the mountains. After that, you have to talk to 4 frogs in completely different locations, 2 of which are mini-bosses in separate dungeons. This is an enormous amount of work that ultimately results in a single piece of heart. Saving up 5,000 rupees in the Clocktown Bank is another obnoxious task for a single piece of heart. If you know how to farm rupees, it's not too bad, but unnecessarily time-consuming. Several minigames ask you to beat them 3 days in succession for a piece of heart as well. And don't forget the nightmarish shooting galleries requiring perfect scores for the final rewards. Speaking of, number 3, aiming and ammunition. Although a little better than in Ocarina of Time, aiming still feels very digital. You'll often pass your target since you have to push the stick pretty far for it to move at all. But once it does start moving, it's so sensitive, it's hard to be accurate with it. Considering this, man does this game love shooting minigames. The aforementioned shooting galleries are infamous as some of the most difficult pieces of heart to get in the entire series, asking you to hit every single target in a tight time frame. There's also a boat ride target game, a spinning version at Honey and Darlings, and several events that ask you to aim with the bow. As for ammunition, going back in time causes you to lose all ammo and rupees you had on your person. While a cute way to play with the time travel, it doesn't line up with how it works otherwise, since your other items don't disappear, so it just creates busy work in having to restore them. Thankfully, it only takes a grass patch or 2 to fill things up, but ammunition upgrades feel less meaningful since they'll constantly be emptied out anyway. Number 4, Ikana weaknesses. While I've always adored the Ikana Valley portion of Majora's Mask for its distinct and original themes, it's the most lacking area when you look at its content. The bottom of the well is the worst part of Majora's Mask, and it's not close. This section's blatant padding with dismal visuals and repetitive fetch quests. The fact that some of these items can't even be found in the well itself makes it clearly designed to be time-consuming. It adds nothing positive to the game, with a lot of rummaging through menus. Ikana Castle follows and is a step up with nice visuals, a killer track, and very cool boss fight. But it ends up being disappointing, with mostly aimless rooms, a reused mini-boss you've fought multiple times by now, and a crack in the roof that requires a powder keg, an item you're very unlikely to have on hand, forcing you to go back to Clocktown and make your way back up. Afterwards, you learn the Elegy of Emptiness, a song that lets you create statues of your current form. This is an interesting idea for puzzle solving that's completely destroyed by how time-consuming it is to use. Getting up Stone Tower is painfully tedious, having to transform, play the Elegy of Emptiness, and watch a statue get created. Rinse and repeat ad nauseum. So much time is spent watching songs play and going in and out of the menu. It's a drag to deal with. As cool as Ikana is conceptually, it's the most padded of the 4 regions. Number 5, a few more things. I'm just gonna list these off. The heads-up display icons are too large. They take up a great deal of visibility, and more consideration could be given to the action. Like Ocarina of Time, shops mostly sell junk, but at least prices are more reasonable since rupees are very easy to get in this game. Even so, rupees still suffer from poor overall value, with only a few things asking for a good amount of them. The Anju and Cafe side quests can be really unforgiving if you make a mistake, especially since there's a fair amount of waiting throughout. It also needs to be completed twice for different rewards. Enemies respawn by moving only a single room away, which is tiresome since you'll often be retreading through the same areas. But at least this helps with farming rupees. Despite Epona controlling smoother here than she did in Ocarina of Time, her inclusion is incredibly superficial. Termina Field is much smaller than Hyrule Field, and the Goron Mask and Bunny Hood are more than enough to get around quickly. She's woefully underutilized. The last thing is how much the Fierce Deity Mask invalidates the final battle. Like I said before, this is an awesome reward, and it's fun to be overpowered. It's just a shame it trivializes a pretty good final boss fight. But that about covers it. Majora's Mask has some of the best set pieces and atmospheres I've seen in video games. With how tired I am of the Zelda series' overuse of the same themes, locations, and characters, I adore this game for branching away from those conventions, standing tall with its own identity. It trusts the player to observe and overcome things on their own, and is a very fulfilling experience because of that. My most recent playthrough made it clearer than ever just how great this game is. I wouldn't say it straight up surpasses Ocarina of Time, but it certainly does a lot of things better. Majora's Mask leaves an impact not a lot of games can match. It's a phenomenal feat for the time it was created in, presenting an emotional experience that holds up incredibly well to this day. Thank you all so much for watching. If you liked my video, subscribe and check out my Patreon. Thank you so much to my patrons for your support. I'll see you next time.